work in mechatronics domain. So it will be a great pleasure for me to be there in Walchand College many times as I am an alumni of that college. So so all the faculties are my teachers in fact, and I am going to present in front of them. It will be a pleasure for me to share my work as well as contribution towards a mechatronics domain. So today I am going to given a brief information about basically what does that mechatronics means. We are going to discuss in a few part of it, and at the end we are going to keep in some open problems, so which we can take into future for either in terms of a research or kind of a direct work for it on practical basis. So basically, if you look into the history of the mechatronics, so it starts with an 18th century, so where the mechanical production was initially initiated. So I will not say it is in a mechatronics part. So mechanical in 18th century, that steam engine was invented, and then it was initiated that entire industry. So that was a huge amount of activity was initiated in Europe. And then after 18th century, then next stage comes to the 19th century. So initially the whatever the production was on a very small level, and people are manufacturing in a small products and having in a small industries for it. But so in 19th century, then era of mass production has existed, and that is what it is called as an industry 2.0. Initially it was industry 1.0, then 2.0, which was given a very nice approach towards mass production, which was reduce cost of it, so many things that was happened. And after this, then during the mass production, it is observed that if systems are more automated, I can get in a more and more mass production, or more kind of an output or productivity I can get it. So for that purpose, then automation comes into the picture. That automation means what is going to happen. So we are going to automate, means that human interference we want to reduce it. Previously human interference was large. So this human is all the time looking at the processors, he is going to control that process, and his involvement was huge. And then it was next era came into the picture, that is what an automated productions. And then this is in 20th century, it was in a great contribution from this automation part. During this automation, so obviously when you are going to do an automation, obviously you need to have connected with each other. So this connectivity was given by electrical motors, so many things people are using it. And in this connectivity, they are taking, so it was started with an ENC machine, then CNC machines, then turret, lathe, machining center, so many things have involved it. Then it was thought, so it was there. Now we have a big production plants, they are manufacturing very fast, they are manufacturing cars, maybe in 10 to 15 cars per day, like this. Then next era came into the picture, why cannot we connect all this with an internet? That is what in the next era comes into the existence. That is growth of this internet part of it. And that internet has given to the birth to another industry, that is what in a 4.0 or 4.0 industry. And this 4.0 industry has given a platform for working together. Mechanical people are there, computer people are there, electronics people are there, then mathematicians are there, mathematicians to conduct this big data analysis or analytics part of it. So this way, this is now again progressing further, and it has evolved in a very nice technologies like 3D printers. In 3D printers, you can manufacture a component of any kind of complicated component, you can quite easily manufacture it. That is what an era comes into the picture. And this now 3D printer, previously it was used to only develop prototypes or design verification or validation purpose. But after this, now it is necessity that why cannot we use this 3D printer for mass production. So still it is not applicable as in a 3D printer to the mass production. So similar way, So that is similar way we can use in other things into the mass production also. But along with this only production industries or something, so technology has percolated and our daily life also. So it has come into the healthcare units, it has come into the our supply chain management staff. Each and every place you can find this technology, and each and every phase of our life is promoted within a technology and all these things. You may be knowing that we have if you don't have a mobile with you for next 5 to 10 minutes, you will be much more disparate. This is what a technology given us. So it's not good anyway. We should not be much more disparate to all the time stick to the technology, but it has given a good amount of connectivity with each other. That is what and in future it is expected more than 30 to 40 equipments will be there on our body which will monitor our entire system, and that is what in a way and it is going to send it to the nearest hospital or data center which will continuously monitor you so that your health will be taken care. All these stuffs are in progress, and that is what in a technology. And in future this technology will lead to maybe we are sitting in the home like in a similar way. From last 4 months we are sitting in the home avoiding COVID spread and kind of things. So similar fashion, so in future we may control entire industry by sitting at a single place, and we know each and every process. So that is what the way progress will happen. So before going for a more challenges or opportunities, I would like to give a brief idea about mechatronics part. So when I say in a mechatronics means it is in a combination of your mechanical system, that is first mechanical, then there will be an electronics, then computer, and then analysis. All these will come into a single place, and then I can club this as a word as a mechatronics, mechanical, electronics, and connected with all this. So if you look into any mechatronic system, basic element starts with a mechanical. We can't say without mechanical there is a mechatronics. It is not going to happen. So first starts with a mechanical system. You can take any example, washing machine you can take, or any antenna control system. We are going to discuss those simple case studies for this. So on this mechanical system, we are going to mount a few sensors on it. Sensor is nothing but a device which will sense that particular parameter, like a simple temperature. I want to sense it. Temperature is nothing but if you look into the definition of the temperature, it's a degree of hotness and coldness is represented as a parameter. That is what a temperature. So that temperature will be sensed here, and that temperature cannot be processed by your microcontroller quite easily. So for that purpose, that temperature should be converted in terms of a voltage, maybe in a current, maybe in a capacitance, maybe any electrical parameter. I will say it is an electrical parameter. So that is done by this sensor one, and that we sensor part. And once it is converted in this, then whatever the signal we are getting, either in terms of voltage, current, and these values will be very low. If you look into the performance of your thermocouple, so it will give a 50 millivolt change, maybe in a 500 degree Celsius change. So that is going to happen, and this 500 degree Celsius change will result into very small value, that is on a 50 millivolt. And this 50 millivolt, quite easy, it is very difficult to measure and understand by microcontroller stuff. So that's what again here this amplification will be there. So I'll take a simple example, 50 millivolt is there here, and that will be converted into 0 to 5 volt. So that is what the conversion, and that is what an amplification we are going to do it in this place. After this amplification, this is nothing but an analog signal. Analog signal, we'll discuss this. Analog means it is a continuously varying signal with respect to time. If you look at it is going to vary like this, and that it cannot be understood by your microcontroller, and because it is based on digital signals. Digital is nothing but stepped signal, means it is going to, if you look at with respect to time, so it will be step like this. And this is what on a digital signal that should be converted. So here it is an analog signal, it is to be converted into digital, and that is what A to D kind of a stuff you need to mount onto this, and that is what a data acquisition system do. This data acquisition system has a capability to convert whatever analog signal we have in terms of a digital signal, and that digital signal will now understand by your microcontroller. It will process it. It will work like a brain for you. And in this microcontroller, we are going to do a certain programming for it, and that program will now generate a signal the similar way our brain works. So if you sense something, obviously our brain will now start thinking based on the signal, and that will be converted into some another signal that will go through your entire body, and it will now give a signal to the muscles. The same way it will now, this signal is again digital signal, and this digital signal is further this what are the actuator understands analog signal, and this particular actuator only understand analog signal, and we have a digital signal, and this is again converted into here analog part, and this analog will have enough because microcontroller works in the range of 12 volt or 5 volt or something. So this is having a lower range, maybe this analog signal is going to have a 0 to 5 volt, but your motor needs maybe 3-phase supply, maybe in a single phase supply, maybe 0 to 230 volt kind of things. So this 0 to 5 is not sufficient to drive this motor. So for that purpose we need some power supply here, and this power supply is going to convert 0 to 5 volt to either 0 to 230 volt or 3-phase supply or single phase supply, whichever it is necessary for a night. So that is what this amplifying electronics will contribute into this. And this amplifying electronics will now give the signal to the actuator. Actuator maybe your heater will be there if you are going to control a temperature system. If it is motor or XYZ stage, so that will now drive your mechanical system, and it will either change the position, change the temperature. That is going to happen as an effect of it. And when you look into the mechatronics part of it, you can just look at here. We are going to learn on a mechanical part. Okay, so here mechanical domain. Then sensors. It will go into the sensors. Sensors means it is converting mechanical part into electrical signals. Then amplifying electronics means it is the electronics part. Then data acquisition system, which will A to D converters. Microcontrollers means it is coming on computer parts, and it's programming. And then again the same way here it is an amplifying. Actuation is again electromechanical part. Electrical signal is given to it, and it is going to convert that electrical signal into mechanical signals or mechanical force, temperature, so many things. So that is what involves so many things as in a bunch of it, and this is nothing but an interdisciplinary part of it, and that is what we are going to study in more detail into this entire program. We are going to look at different applications. One is we are going to look into the antenna control system. So how this antenna control system will work. Next is unmanned free swimming vehicle, we will look at it. Then we will also look at the space shuttle control system, how it is that, then human eye control system, and optical disc drive. So when you look into the antenna control or any dish control, this might be, you can say it as in a solar system. I think somebody's mic is on, so if they could be able to mute themselves, it will be better. I request. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Please continue.
somebody's mic is on. If you could help him to mute, it will be better, I think.
I am also trying to identify, but not
Okay.
able to. Still,
Anyway, so I'll continue my part.
participants,
All,
once
all,
again,
all participants are requested to mute yourself, please. Yes, sir, continue, please.
Okay. So here it is an antenna is a pure mechanical device which will have connected gears. Here this is one gear and then this is another gear. This is the gear drive. And we want to know the position of this antenna, and that is possible by potentiometer. This is what on a potentiometer, which will measure angle of orientation of this antenna. That angle is typically azimuth control or any kind of an angle we can control it. And here this mechanical part or gears are connected within a motor. This motor is taking an electrical signal. It is an electrical signal will be converted into torque or your speed, or I can say it is in a so this is what on a speed it will come, or it will deliver the power to this. So this is what an input to my system is an electrical signal, output is my torque or speed, like this. And when we are going to monitor it, this is a typical analog control system. Analog means we are not going to change the signal
Hello, sir.
step by step.
Hello, sir. Please share the screen. Hello. Hello, sir.
हाँ बोलिए.
yeah,
In this, and there is one more potentiometer is mounted here to control purpose. So when I set the angle for this, what is going to happen? It is going to
Sir,
generate
screen is
some
not getting on.
voltage.
Can you please share the screen? Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, screen has been shared, sir. So please you pin on Suhas Deshmukh's presentation screen.
Okay, can I continue, sir?
Let's continue, please.
Yeah. So this potentiometer will now given an input as an angle theta, and that will be converted in terms of voltage signal. And this voltage signal is a typically desired voltage signal, I can say. And whatever it is, here it is potentiometer is taking angle theta as an input and taking output as a voltage. This is what an actual position. So here this differential amplifier, what it does, it will take desired signal, then actual signal, then they will take a difference of it, and that difference, based on this difference, there will be some electronics which will amplify the signal to the higher values, and the signal will be given to the motor. So this is what the way it works as in a control system. This is a typical flow diagram or something. This is what on a potentiometer. It is connection diagram. This is power amplifier, differential amplifier, and then armature, that is a motor model, then gear model, then gear, inertia, viscous damping, so many things you can observe it. So when we are doing a such analysis, if you look into the individual element, if I take a simple example of potentiometer, angle is theta as an input to it, output is my voltage. So what is the connection between these two matters a lot, and that is nothing but my system model. I can say it is in a model of it. We convert into Laplace transform. That is what in a GS. So similar way, we need to now model this system step within a small blocks. So here we have different blocks. Here it is in one as potentiometer. This is my one system. This is my second system, subsystem. Then third is motor as third subsystem. Then entire this gear and antenna, each and everything will become in a fourth system, then fifth system. Like this, I have multiple blocks, and these blocks are interacting with each other, and that interaction is going to result a change in the position of the antenna. So that is what it is done by block diagram representation. Here it is an angle as an input to the potentiometer. This is a desired angle I can have, and here it is a desired voltage I will get it. Here it is in a summing junction. This is nothing but creating a difference of it. So here it is another potentiometer. Here theta is my input, voltage is my output. So this will result into VD minus VA, nothing but an error signal. and this error signal is given to the power amplifier. Otherwise also it is called as a differential amplifier, and that differential amplifier will now do both the things. It will take account of this error, and also it will enhance the voltage required to drive the motor. And this is nothing but your control signal, I can say. This is a controller and this is my control signal. And this control signal is again going to drive your motor. It is picking up the load, it is changing the position of the gears and so many things, and it is going to change the angle here. So ultimately this is my actual angle and this is my desired angle. Ultimately what we want the relation between this my actual and your desired angle. So that is what it is expected, and for that purpose you can see what are the signal is going to change from one part to another part. Sometime your signal is in mechanical domain, another where you are going to signal is having an electrical signal. So you should have some interaction for it. So then obviously, so this block, I can say it is in a kind of in a black box or something, is going to give me the relation between this output and input. This is the output from the block and this is my input from the input to the block. And that is what it is called as a transfer function, and that transfer function is defined in terms of a Laplace. There is a specific reason to define this in terms of a Laplace. The reason for this is when I am going to solve a differential equation, so all this follows some rate of change. These all subsystems are following some rate of change, and that is rate of change is nothing but a differential equation, and that rate of change is represented in terms of a differential equation. And this differential equation is most of the time finds it difficult to solve. So that's what we need to convert that differential equation into somewhere algebraic equation. That we do it in finite element analysis also, we do it in control systems analysis also, so many places. So Laplace is one of the tools which will transform your differential equation into a simple algebraic equations, and that is what the way, that is the reason this Laplace will be used hugely in representing and or analyzing control systems part of it. Below table you can find subsystem and its input and output parameters. These are the input parameters for it, and this is what an output parameters. But now if you put these equations for this is what nothing but an equation for your potentiometer, this equation for your preamplifier, this is for power amplifier, this equation you can just observe. This is nothing but a representation. It's a representing behavior mathematically of your particular subsystem. And this is what a motor load or something. Here you can say it is in a second order because it is S into S becomes in a second order, it is the first order. This is a simple constant and kind of things. So we got so many blocks into this. Obviously these blocks to be clubbed together to know the relation between actual angle change and what is my input change. So if my transfer function of the system, overall transfer function of system is 1, so it is in a perfect system, I can say, but it is in actual practice this doesn't happen at all. So here you can just observe, here it is in a individual blocks. This is what in a one equation you can find, this is another equation, this is third equation, then one more equation like this. So these equations should be clubbed to a single equation, and that is what it is called as in a block diagram reduction. We do it, block diagram reduction. And this reduction have a certain, basically one most important rule, that signal strength should not change any moment of time. That is what basically intention for it, and that's what we can have in a step-by-step process, and we'll get only one single transfer function which represents the behavior of your entire antenna, starting at the input potentiometer to sensing potentiometer. And this is going to give me this is output signal, and this is my input signal. Relation between these two is represented. Now I want to have a better control on it. So in this, you can observe there is one parameter which is unknown here, that is a k parameter. I want to tune up this k parameter such that I am getting a better control on it. So that is what it is called as in a control system. And if I increase the value of the k, that is what a gain value I can say, and my system is going to perform in this fashion. And if I am going to reduce this, my system will have in this way, this one. So now whichever the desired response you wanted, based on, you can set your k value, and that is nothing but your control parameter, and which is going to give me a perfect control onto the system. And that is the reason this control system has an importance, or mechatronics has an importance, or its analysis is the most important, because in this analysis each and everybody's contribution plays a very important role. Motor contribution is there, gear contribution is there, power amplifier contribution is there, each and everyone is contributing. If any of this is going to fail, your system is going to fail. So that is what the way you can just look at one case study for this. Similarly, if you look into another case study, there are free swimming submersible vehicles are there. That is what an unmanned. So no one is to control that part. In that particular vehicle, so depth of the vehicle is to be controlled. How it is to be controlled? When you are going to, if you imagine your submersible vehicle, this is my liquid level and this is my submersible. It is moving further, and when I want to go into the deep, so this is my desired actual signal, and I want to now move that submersible to the lower side. What I have to do? I have to rotate this particular submersible about certain axis. That is what it is called as a pitch axis, and that is what during forward motion, elevator surface. This is what an elevator surface on the vehicle is to be deflected by a certain selected amount, and then it will go and deep dive into the liquid, and then this, what are the angular deformation it is going to happen, and that angular deformation will going to cause this deflection is going to cause to rotate about the pitch axis, and that pitch axis will go into the disc. So when we are only it is expected you want to rotate it, but the actual practice, you are not only rotating, but you are going to change the speed of rotation also during this operation. It is not a constant, it is a dynamic system. So for that purpose, we need to have a certain block diagram representation. Here you can just look at the test case for this. This is what a submersible, and here it is a rudder. This is what in a rudder it is called, and this is to be deflected such that it is going to dip into this or up into this, whichever the high altitude. If you want to go for an up, it will take this angle, and this is what this. So if you look into this, this is nothing but a heading command we are going to generate it, and this heading gain, this is one gain you are going to tune up, and then there is an actuator. What is a rudder actuator has a mathematical equation like this. Then this is what in a vehicle dynamics, which plays an important role because it involves its own inertia, it involves its own stiffness, so many parameters. So this is what in a vehicle dynamics, and you may be remembering there is a signal card as when I have a Laplace of derivative d by dt. So it is value is s, and if I have I have to integrate it, integration Laplace will result into 1 upon s. So this is going to tell me the rate, or that is I can say derivative of that particular signal. So I want an angle. That's what we are going to take 1 by s multiplication, which will result into the integration of it, and which will give an angle of it. So this is what a rate of change of angular motion. This will give only rate of change of angle. That is what an angle it is going to tell you. And here it is again you are going to take a derivative. So it will now it will determine a rate here. Here it is this is what an angle it is going to give an input, and this is going to give me a change in the angle or rate of change of angle. So this is what in a way you can just look into these blocks, and these blocks are contributing, each and every block is contributing to the performance of your system. Means ultimately your aim is that I should connect these two elements, starting point and end point, and each and every one is going to contribute into this, and that is what nothing but in a performance of your system. And in this you are going to control this k parameter, and that k parameter is playing a very important role. If I give a higher value or lower value or change something or something, so this is going to give me a performance of my system. If I am going for a very high value of the gain, it will get your system will go on more and more excitations, and if my value is low, it will have this performance. Maybe I am going to have something like this, or maybe this performance. So out of this I can have a K1 here, then K2 here, K3 here, K4 here. You can now select what the performance you are looking for it, and you can now decide value of K. Maybe I am happy with this K2, I will select this K2 value and club into this, and I will provide a perfect control onto this. So this is what the way you can have a control system it's to be designed. Similar fashion, you can have space shuttle pitch control system, because we got some basic idea about it. The same way here it is in a pitch of the space shuttle will be controlled to change the altitude of it. In this case, the same way we can see so many blocks are there, and these blocks are interacting with each other. Here I will have two parameters now. Here K1 is there, then K2 is there. So these two parameters is now going to drive my entire system. Here I am going to control the accelerometer. I am taking S square. Here it is on a rate, means yes I am going to take. This is a kind of an inertial measuring unit. So this is going to tell me a theta input. Here it is I am getting theta double dot. Here I am getting theta 1, and again here as a theta. So this is what the way we used to do this. So similar fashion, if you look into the human control, the same manner this entire control is going to happen. So when we sense any object by our eyes, so this is going to sense your object. So that is a position it is going to sense it. So that is given to your brain, because your eyes are nothing but working as a sensor. They are not contributing anything. They are going to collect the information and sending to the brain. And when they are going to send the information to the brain, it will cause a certain delay. Whenever we are going to design any control system, you need to take account of the delay from one place to another place. So when we are going to process the information, it is expected. So we need to take account of the delay of the sensor. Then that is what we call as a sampling frequency or something. We can just look at it. Then this brain is going to give the signal to the nervous system. Means once it is going to process this brain observe that I want to pick up the glass of water, and then it will process it. Your brain is fast enough to, once it is sensed, it automatically generates a signal for your muscles, and that muscle signal is passed through to the muscle through the nervous system, and that nervous system will generate a chemical pulse, and that is going to give a muscle, and then muscle is going to look at the changing the position of the eye. If you observe someone who is know you from long time, and then obviously your muscle will now give a smiling face for it. That is what it works, and then feedback is continuous there. If that person is going to give a better response, you will give a much better response to him. If he is not going to respond, obviously your muscles are not going to act it, and that is what it is entirely happening without knowing ourselves. And these are nothing but typical blocks which will follow the mathematical equations behind it, and it is going to do the work for it. So one more interesting example I have taken as an optical disk drive, in which we are going to discuss about how the information of the disk, because this is somewhat outdated nowadays, but still has a very nice way, nice concept to learn around it. So this is what in a track tracks are mounted with pits on it, and this is what it is shined with an objective lens, and there is a beam splitter. Here it is a laser is passing through this beam will be split into two part. One is on right, one is on photodetector part, and another will go to the lens, and lens is going to focus onto this, and this lens is also to be focused perfectly onto this. If you are not going to focus it perfectly, it is going to lead to a wrong information. And this is possible by providing a very precise mechanism, that is what a flexural mechanism I can say, and having a Y-coil motors inside mounted on it. If you look into this picture, so this is what in your head of your mechanism. If you press to this lens, it will give a very small motion, hardly 1 or 2 mm motion, and that is what it is possible by having there are two types of control onto this. It is one is tracking control and another is focusing control. And focusing control means I can have two tracks, like you can just look at here. So here it is in a land which is going to change the signal, and it is again going to do this. So whenever the change is going to happen, you can observe my signal value is 1, and rest of the places my signal value is 0 here. And here it is again changing the signal, means it is going to change the 1 value. So this way it is going to sense this, what are the information written onto the disk. And here it is in a motor which will run within a constant speed. The disk you are going to mount it here, which is continuously rotating within a speed of constant, maybe in a 3000, 4000 RPM. And this there will be a two tracking information. One is going to track it coarse tracking, I can say. It is coarse tracking, and there is one more tracking is going to happen within this. That is what it is called as a fine tracking. And whenever we are going to drive on a vehicle, and your CD drive is going to run it, and sometimes you may observe suddenly your song is going to change, or it is going to shift your song, or something that is going to happen. And this is because of your any jerk it is coming on the CD drive. If your CD drive is continuously under vibrations, this entire dynamics of it is going to play a very important role, and it is going to miss the information for this. Though here this focusing will be done by Y-coil motors. Y-coil motors are simple motors. There will be like a magnet. This is what a magnet part of it, and there will be a coil. And whenever you are going to signal a coil, given a current to this coil or voltage to this coil, it is going to generate a force in axial direction. This is a very simple VCM it is called, and it comes within a very small size to a very large size. Why it is called as a Y-coil motor? Because it is typically used in generating a sound, or it will be used in speakers and kind of things. So each and every one's contribution will lead to you will get a better sound onto this, and that is what it is optical disk drive works. And here there is a photodiode, that is a quadrant photodiode detector, that is quadrature photodiode detector, and this is going to sense the position of it, whether it is perfectly positioned on the track or not, and then obviously that signal is given to the again back to your motors, and all this will work in synchronized manner, and it will give you the output. So this is when we are going to designing a system. So you have observed this all basic systems. In this, first of all, you need to determine the physical. When you're designing for this, means you are going to determine physical system. Then you are going to define the specifications and from its requirements. All these parameters you are going to define it. Second step, draw the functional block diagram, which we have seen in few examples, like an antenna control system or human eye control system or anything, or optical disk drive system. And this each block is to be now analyzed individually. That is what in a transform. That is what I can say it is in a transfer function. It is analyzed for this, and this transfer function is now further connected to each other, multiple transfer function. A single subsystem will be now having multiple subsystems, and these subsystems will now interact with each other. Reduce this by a reduction technology, reduction methods, that is reduce these blocks to a single block and form in a closed loop system, and that closed loop system performance will be analyzed by providing a simple signals like a step response or sinusoidal response or a ramp response. So many input signals you can have a chirp signal. So many inputs you can give, and you can observe the output. And you need to now create a relation between your input and output, and which is nothing but a contribution of all these multiple small blocks into this. That is what it is called as mechatronics or mechatronic system design. And in this, controller is nothing but a small element, but it is playing a very important role. If your control system is not perfect enough, it is going to give me some different response at all. That is what it is going to happen. So we'll now look at the sensor part of it. So Sudhir sir, 2 minute थांबा, मी आलोच परत. Sudhir sir, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. No problem. Okay. So meanwhile, I'd like to instruct all the participants. So many of the chats are coming that they are not able to visible the screen. So please go to Suhas sir's presentation portfolio and then pin it. There might be 2 Suhas sir's screen will be there. So go to Suhas sir's presentation. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome back. So here we will now understand individual components, how the sensor, how this actuator and all this stuff, how it works. Basically, when I say sensor, so it is going to convert the information which is available, will be converted that particular information in terms of some other information. So if you take a temperature, you want to measure it. There is one concept called as a temperature RTD, that is a resistance temperature detector. In this resistance temperature detector, this is nothing but a basic principle of it, and that principle is what, if you are going to increase the temperature, resistance of your particular material is going to change. That is what principle I can say it, and that is the way it is going to convert your temperature information into the change in the resistance. And that is what the way that sensors work. This is one example I have given it. Similar fashion, there are huge amount of basic principles. Capacitance changes there, electromagnetic field is going to change, electric current is going to change. So you can just observe it. The same way, even chemical sensing, so many places you can observe it. In this, first step, you need to identify which variable you want to sense. Whatever the sensor, as a human being we have it, they are very smart enough. They are not the way the sensors which we develop nowadays. The sensors are such that they can sense quite easily So sensors will sense easily, and they have their own signal in it. Just if I want to listen something, and our brain and our sensor is such a smart that it will eliminate rest of the sound, rest of the noise, and only the information necessary for our brain or our liking, it will be sent to the brain. So this happens, and we observed from the childhood itself. So first of all, we need to sense, first of all, in RTD, this temperature is my first signal. I want to observe it. Right? After this temperature, I am going to have a certain material, I will say, which is going to give me a change in the resistance. That is what on a delta R. And this becomes an electrical signal. That is what on a principle we are going to use. Which principle you are going to use for sensing it. And that is change in the resistance is nothing but a principle. Here we got a change in the resistance here, and that change in the resistance is, I want to now further convert into the voltage. and that is what where we can use in a multiple circuits. I can have in a voltage divider circuit divider, or I can have on a Wheatstone bridge. So many other circuits are there which will give me a change in the resistance equal to change in the voltage, and that voltage is now either will be displayed used for display purpose, it will be used for record purpose, or nowadays we are looking for IoTs, so it will be transmitted to Wi-Fi unit something. So when we look into the data acquisition system, there are two ways by which we can do a data acquisition. One is as the signal coming directly dump into the PC, that your PC should be an analog computer, which is not possible. In this, so this is what on a physical phenomena which is going to change the particular variable. So whenever we are going to observe change in the temperature, along with the change in the temperature, obviously there is a humidity is also going to change. So many parameters are going to change into this. But we want to have only one single variable, but our brain, our sensors will sense both the things. So that is what it is called as a fusion. I can say our human brain can sense 2-3 things at a time, and it can separate both the things. That is what a fusion of this. Fusion of a single sense, single variable, or single sensor is going to give me a 2-3 simple different datas. That is what is called as a sensor fusion. And so this is now going to convert that physical signal into the transducer, and transducer is going to give a signal conditioning unit. This signal conditioning unit is typically maybe a voltage amplifying unit, so which we have changed voltage or current amplification unit. Amplification, this is one we are going to do it. Another part, we want to now filter out the information. Filter out the information. Filter out means you may be remembering in morning we are going to take a tea. During the tea, when we boil the tea, we use a mesh for it to filter it out. Why we filter it? Because we don't want it. The same way this signal conditioning unit also does. Signal conditioning unit, what it does, it will collect the information. So this information you don't want it, so it will eliminate it. How it eliminates? It uses basically mathematical tools for it. So your maybe XY stage is going to operate at 5 hertz or 10 hertz of frequency. You know that it is going to operate at 10 hertz of signal like this. So this is my X position, this is my time. Just take an example of your XY table in CNC machine. It's going to oscillate in this fashion. So this is your information, you know it. But along with this information, your signal is having some more information, like your signal is now having this kind of a variation. And this is which these oscillations, you know that these oscillations are not due to my mechanical motions, but maybe something is coming out from this, and this oscillations should be filtered out. And these oscillations means we need to convert that into FFT or frequency domain, and that is what you can now filter out. If my signal is having a 10 hertz and I don't want the signal which is more than 10 hertz, so obviously I can eliminate those signals, and that is what it is called as a low pass filter. Means you are going to pass the signal of a lower frequency and you are going to block the signals of a higher frequency, and this will be converted into a simple signal, like in a simple this way it will convert. Means it is going to remove this, what are the oscillations from this. These oscillations will be removed quite easily, and that is what done in the filtering, and that is what the contribution of the signal conditioning unit. Once the signal conditioning unit is going to give me this signal is an analog. So you can look at this analog signal. This is what in a continuous change you can observe, and this signal is called as an analog signal. And this is what in a typical analog system. So where your antenna is there, and this is angle is continuously monitored by potentiometer. So this is continuous monitoring, because if a small change also will be quite easily detected by potentiometer. It is not a pulse type of a signal, but it is continuous signal. But your computer understand here only digital information that is to be converted into this. And digital information means I need to convert into step information. and that is what this analog signal is converted into digital. And this is what it is called as an ADC, which we seen it previously. And this, what does that digital signal means? This is my analog signal, you can just observe it. And what are the stepped signal you can observe? This signal is called as a digital, and these are the steps due to what kind of a bit accuracy you are going to look at it. Bit information, bit accuracy I can say, and that bit information is depends on how many bits you are going to collect it. So we'll now look at a simple case within a 2-bit system. Just take an example of 2-bit system having a 0 volt and down
No,
volt and
no,
5
sir,
volt.
your voice is breaking.
Yeah? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Sudhir sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Somebody says, no, I am not audible. That's what I thought it.
No problem, sir. No problem. Everything is okay.
Yeah. So if I have a 2-bit system, 2-bit means I'm going to represent the signal only within 2-bit. If you take numbers from 0 to 100, means I can have only 2-bit system. I can now have a starting number is 00, and then 01, like this. I can go up to 99. How many steps we can go? Total 1000 steps I can go at. Similarly, if I have only 1-bit system, that is 0 to 9, I have 10 steps. Similarly, if I have 1000, then I can go for 1000 steps. 3-bit system, I have 3 bits for this. So this is what called as a decimal numbering system. This is what decimal numbering, and this decimal numbering we have steps spreaded from 0 to 9. 10 steps are there. Similar fashion, this bit system is having only 2 steps. That is what a binary does. Whether that signal is exist or not, that is what it is going to tell, and it has only 2 steps. Either it is 0 or 1. That is what a binary does. Means here, if I have a 1-bit system, it will have 10 steps in decimal numbers. If I have a 2-bit system, it has 100 steps in a decimal numbering. In similar fashion, if I binary number, only 2 steps are there. This is what in a 0 and 1. If I have a 2-bit system, means I can have a 2 raised to 2, it will give me 4 bits, and it is in 4 steps. First step will be 0 0, second will be 0 1, third will be the 1 0, and fourth will be 1 1. So if your signal is represented by red color line, it will be converted into steps like this. So here it is in a 0 1. This is my 0 voltage. This is my 5 voltage, and it will be 0 to 5 volt will be divided into 4 steps. Means first step will be 1.25, then second is 2.5, then 3.75, like this. 1.25 will be represented by 0 1. 2.5 will be represented by 1 0, and 3.5 and above will be represented by 1 1. So this is what the way it does. This is for 2-bit system. Similarly, I will have a 3-bit system. In 3-bit system, I can have a 2 raised to 3, which becomes 8 steps for it. Means this is my first step, then second step, third step. Likewise, this is my 8th step. So similarly, if you have an 8-bit system, that is a 4-bit system, I will have a 2 raised to 4. It becomes 16 steps will be there, 1 2 3 4 something. So in 3-bit system, I can get a minimum sensing 0.625. If I have a 2-bit system, I can have a sensing 1.25. If I have a 4-bit system, I can have a sensing 3.32. Means what does that resolution or sensing means? I can't sense my signal below this value. That is what called as a resolution. And if my sensor is going to sense somewhere 0.5 something, it will never, this 3-bit will not work at all. But if I go for 2-bit, 4-bit system, it will have a 2 steps into this. So one is 0.3 step and another is 0.6 step, and this will give me a 0.5 something. So that is what the way you can represent 2-bit, 3-bit, 4-bit, maybe 8-bit, maybe 16-bit, maybe 64-bit, maybe 128 bits. We'll have a simple example about it. So how the sensing will be done, that is in digital system. So in this digital system, just take an example of water tank having 40 feet of height and starting with 0 feet. I want to now sense using a 10-bit my sensor or 10-bit microcontroller. And what this way microcontroller does, 10-bit means total number of steps will be 2 raised to 10 becomes 1024 number of steps. Means if I go for the first foot of my information, voltage output will be 0 or my step will be there. This is what on a step I can get a 0 voltage. So if I define here, it is going to give me a 0 voltage and here it is going to give me a 10 voltage. Okay, so my step will be 0 to 10. So then if I am going to have a maximum position, that is a 40 foot position, so my step will be 1024th step and voltage will be 10 volt. And now we can map it between this. I can have a foot on one axis and voltage output on another axis, and this is my 0 position and this is my maximum position. This gives me 1024 and this gives me a 10 volt like this. So this way we can map it, and I can have any in between step I can quite easily sense. So for this particular sensor with a 10 bit of information, it can sense this much amount of 0.039 foot minimum. It cannot sense below that. So that is what a limitation in all digital system. Along with such limitation, digital system will have a very nice advantage. It can remove the noise quite easily. And you may be remembering old radios where we are using an entirely analog system. So whenever we are going to tune it, it is creating so much of noise. But nowadays, when I press on a single button, tune it, and your FM or your radio is going to give you very clear information, clear sound, which was not there before 15 to 20 years back. So that's what this is what in a digital era. So obviously you're going to convert that information into the digital, and that is what the advantage we can use for as in a digital systems. So you have seen it, conversion of analog to digital, and same way. So this is going to give me a digital information, this is analog information, and this digital output will be again converted into analog information. That is what in a D to A converter. This is what in a simple speech kind of things, mic which will, so as I am going to speech it or talk, what is going to happen, these mics are going to vibrate, and these mics vibrations will be converted into voltage, and that voltage is again converted into digital information and processed through the computer, and then it is I want to generate that sound also, and that is possible. This digital information again you need to convert into analog, and that is what DAC does, digital to analog conversion. And that digital to analog conversion is given to your speaker through certain amplifier, and it is going to create a larger sound. So that is what it is going to happen. This is what an analog signal converted into pulse of information. This is what it is called as a quantization, and then this is what it is called as a digital signal like this. You can just look at this particular GIF where your sound is going to record it. This is what in your analog signal will be converted into digital information, 0 and 0 1 type of information. This is what in a digital signal processing unit which will convert that. It will store into the memory. This is what in a mic, and then again it will come back with the same route. So that is the same thing. Instead of this mic, I can now mount on a temperature sensor, or maybe position sensor, or X position, Y position, velocity sensor, vibration sensor. So many things I can sense it. And here instead of the speaker, I can mount an actuator, maybe a Y coil motor, maybe your solenoid actuator. So many things you can do it, and you can do an entire control of it. That is what we can do it here. There is basically a difference, big difference between microcontroller and microprocessor. Microprocessor means we are going to use in your computer is works as in a microprocessor. It can help you to do in so many complicated calculations, but microcontroller will not help you. In microcontroller, there are most important stuff is a DAC and ADC part of it. So that is what it does. But in microprocessor, these things will not be there in microprocessor. They will have all the units as it is. So there will be a RAM, there will be a ROM, then memory, timers, serial communicators, and these serial communicators are connected with a mouse, maybe in a monitor, and so many things. So that is what it does, and it has a clock circuit, which continuously. There is a reason for this clock circuit, because whichever the signal we are going to take it from the sensor, and that signal is typically coming within a certain speed. And this microprocessor, as you know that each and every real life system has a certain limitation, and that limitation for this is maximum speed at which it can collect the information, and that is what it is called as a sampling. How much sample it can sustain it. That is what it. For that purpose, there is a clock circuit or clock it is called. Now we'll look at how this control system works. Control system means I have here it is in a potentiometer which will set the temperature, and here it is in another temperature sensor. Here it is in a thermocouple which will collect the information and it will give it to this. And this potentiometer and this potentiometer, this is one signal coming here as a desired temperature. I can say here it is coming with an actual temperature. It will take a difference of it. It will give the signal to the power supply. Either it will switch on and off kind of things. Depends on what is my desired temperature, whether it is higher value or lower value. So this is what the way this controller. Now here only on and off. This is what typically a controller which decides the behavior of my system. This controller will decide the behavior, not any other part of it. So now we can represent this into a block diagram, so which we done it previously. This is a sensor, then there is a process, then actuating element, controller, and now this controller is playing a very important role because these are not going to change their behavior. Here we can have another authority to change the behavior. It will be kind of things. So similar fashion in class also we used to do. We used to collect the students group. Few students are maybe 4 students are there. One is having a better in mathematics, another is having a better in experimental part, third person is better in management. We take an help of each and everyone, and we are as a controller will assign them activities. The same way here also it works, and that is what in a control system. So basically, when we are going to design a control system, so controller, there is one controller and another one is its performance. So if take an example of 2 person has designed controller, I want to now know whose controller is better. So that is what it is called as a performance. Who is better, which gives better, and for that purpose, so we will give a step response to it. This is my dotted line shows a step response input. This is my input, and this is my output from the system. So this is output is, you can just see it. If my output is perfectly following this, I can have a transfer function of your entire system to be 1. And in actual practice, this doesn't happen it. And that is what a major problem with all the systems. So for that purpose, this is not equal to 1. Having some maybe a value lower than that or higher than that. Due to that, it is going to now give you a performance like this. Maybe first person has designed this controller, second controller has designed this way. So this is what a difference of it. So you can observe 2 things into this. One is, this is the zone where you can have one behavior, and after this there is another behavior. So this is what in a transient it is called. As we are going to change the state of any system, just take an example of you were 2-wheeler or 4-wheeler, you want to start it in morning. So during this, what it happens, initially the speed of the vehicle is 0, as you put upon a key and started, so its speed increases to and reaches to the maybe 2000 speed or something. So it is initially at 0 speed, then reaching to the 2000 speed. So it is going to change the state of my system, and due to the state change, it will excite certain frequencies, natural frequencies of the system. And there is, you can observe, it is going to give a sound, and that sound is nothing but a representation of this transient behavior. And that transient behavior, and because of the damping in the system, after certain time these transients will die out. If I have a higher damping, this transient will not show much variation like the it will show it. And if the damping is low, it will show certain oscillations, and these oscillations will die after certain time. And after certain time, there will be one simple steady state. Initially, we decided to go for 1000 RPM. It is only reaching to the maybe 990 RPM, and this 990 RPM is not exactly to the 1000, and 10 RPM is nothing but an error, and this is called as a steady state error. Steady state error. And this steady state error will be there for most of the time into the system, and we can compensate by some of the controller techniques using this, and that is what in a steady state error. So we'll take this steady state error, and when you are going to compare any controller, so you need to compare with a few parameters like how much amount of overshoot is there, what is amount of weight steady state error is there, what is amount of rise time is there, what is how much time it is taking to settle down all the oscillations. All these parameters are very important whenever we are going to design a controller. So these parameters are going to tell us the performance of your system. That's what, whenever we are designing, we are going to look at these parameters in more detail. But we'll take a simple example. We'll discuss somewhat proportional controller, and I'll pack up my session. So when we say the proportional controller, means we are having a set point here, maybe an angle I had decided 30 degree as an input angle. Here it is initially the angle of the arm is 0. I want to reach to the 30 degree. So this is what 30 is my desired. This is what I can say, it is a theta desired angle, and this is my actual angle. This actual angle is sensed by my sensor, that is a potentiometer, and this is what it is called as a process variable. You can just look at the books, you can find some different names for different values. I can have an actual signal, then desired value. It will take an error of this, and this error information is given to controller. If my error is 0, this becomes 0, my controller will not do anything. It will keep as it is. It will never change your system. If my error is something, then my controller will act. The same is with our human active system also. So controller, this error information, and it is output of my controller. I can say output of my controller. This is error, and this output of my controller is proportional to error. That is what I can say. Y out is directly proportional to my error, and that is constant is a proportionality constant. And we can just see the performance of it. If my angle is 0, at 0 degree angle, my error becomes in a 30 degree. My controller signal will be in a very large. Just imagine it will be in a very large. As angle goes on progressing, this I can have in a 60 as in a controller signal. As my arm reaches to 10 degrees, so error will get reduced to the 20 degree multiplied. Here it is, previously it was 60 as an amount of force. Here it is now 40 as an amount of force. Then as it reaches to the 30 degree, so error is 0, Kp into what are the error will result into the 0 angle. So you can look into the plot like this. Initially this is what your set point, this is my previous process variable or actual position, and between these two is nothing but my error. That is what my error. And if you look into the control signal, initially my control was 0 because you are not given any signal. Once I give the signal, I want to reach to the 30 degree, immediately force will reach to the 60 amount. And this is what in a 60 amount of force it is going to generate. And as time progresses, this error is going on decreasing. and then it will go on decreasing and reaches to the 0 here, and as error becomes 0, this becomes 0. So as I have a lower gain values, I will take a more and more time to reach to this. This is for lower gain value. Again, if I reduce again 1, it will give in this way. If I increase the gain value, it will be in a more faster. So that is what it is, how your behavior, that is proportional signal, proportional controller will work. Actually, proportional controller is also called as in a present tense. It is taking account of present tense into the system. That's what it is called as in a present controller also. Because tense is most important, because we as a human being, our entire world work into three tenses: present tense, then there is in a past tense, and then there is in a future tense. I can have these 3 tenses, and based on that, all the time we give reactions like this. So this is what on a steady state analysis, something I will just skip of this and will directly move towards the next part of it. Is integral controller. In integral controller, so we are taking the integration of your error. Previously in proportional controller, output of the proportional controller, you are directly proportional to the error, and this what our output of a controller, proportional controller, is equal to Kp into E directly. Now we are going to look at here integration of this error. What that integration is going to tell you. So my error may be with respect to time, something like this, and I am going to
First,
integrate. Yeah, bola.
may I interrupt?
Yeah, you can.
You continue a little bit loudly. And second thing, how much time you require to hear?
Maybe more 15 minutes. 10 minutes will be.
Okay.
10
Okay.
to
So
15
accordingly,
minutes.
we
Then
will arrange the
finish by
next
12 o'clock.
session. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So am I audible now properly?
Yes. 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 Speak little bit loudly.
Okay.
Okay.
ठीक है.
Okay. हाँ.
घाम काट दोस्तों. So here, so you can observe variation of the error with respect to time is like this. And you want to integrate means from this time to this time, I want to integrate means I am going to collect the information of my system in past tense, and that is what it represents in a past tense information. So why we need it? Because whatever the performance was happened previously, we should know it, and based on that we are going to take an action into the future, and that is what it is help of this integral controller will be done. So we can take a simple example, same example, and we'll do it. So previously we reached the 30-degree angle of this arm. We'll now put up a weight onto this. When we put the weight, what is going to happen? This is going to this whatever the zero force is going to act it here. So when we put it this much amount of force, so it will get lower down. How much amount of lower down will happen? That is depend upon how much amount of load you are going to apply it. If I say 40 amount of force I am going to apply, so it will convert into 4-degree angle. So it will lower down your arm by 40 degree. Now your desired angle, that is desired angle is 30 degree, and your actual angle is now 26 degree. And now your both the controller will start working, and that is how it works. Just look at it here. So initially your here it is you can just look at this. Initially your angle was 30, it is lowered to the 26 degree. So this is nothing but an error signal, we got it. So immediately once I get an error signal, so your proportional controller, this is what an performance of proportional controller. Sorry, here it is in a proportional controller. Here it is in a proportional controller. What this proportional controller will now immediately, this much amount of force it is going to generate, and this is what an for controller force it will generate, and that is force you can observe it here. But up to this, if you look into the error signal, previously there was no error as such. That's what, there is no error envelope here. So your integral, this is what an integral controller. Integral controller will have zero force at this point. As I go on having some next situation, maybe in a 2-degree angle or something, a 2 degree, or I reach to the 28 degree, just imagine. So your error has reduced, amount of force also reduced. This amount of force, proportional signal or proportional forces are reduced. But it has created some envelope, error envelope, and that is what an integration of this loop, this particular graph will be done, and based on that, this is going to generate this particular force, and this is what this much amount of force it has generated, and that is what it is called as an integral force. Then as we progress it and as we reach to the 30 degree, so here my error becomes 0. Yes, error becomes 0, but it has created certain envelope, error envelope for it, and this error envelope will now give me a complete force. It will now going to pick up this entire stuff and like this. Okay, so this is what is going to happen, and same time you can observe your proportional signal, or I can say output proportional force becomes 0, and your integral force or integral controller signal becomes what are the amount of load you have put it. What this indicates, whenever you are going to use a PDPI type of controller, proportional plus integral controller, proportional controller will only work whenever there is an error in the system, but integral controller will take care of past information, what was happened, whether you have put the load or something, and based on that it will work. So this integral controller will have a very nice advantage whenever there is a friction in the system. So this will take care of it. Whenever there is an inertia load in the system, it will take care of it. Whenever there is a backlash in the system, it will take care of it. So that is what it happens, and this is what in a proportional controller, whenever there is any of this thing is there in the system, you can use this integral controller, and this is what it happens. So now once we done it integral, as I go on increasing more integral, obviously it is going to, maybe just imagine I have a force error variation is something like this, it is going to continuously vary. My integral will have such oscillations. As I am going to give a more value of the gain for Ki, it will provide more oscillation and instability into the system. And due to this instability, there should be something which is going to apply the brake for this instability or stop this instability, or if your system is going to unnecessarily speeding up or creating vibrations, so that somewhere we need to stop it, and that is what it is done in the braking, that is what it is done in the proportional derivative controller. In this case, we have seen one controller output of proportional controller is a Kp into E. Output of integral controller was Kp into integration of E. And now only this is integration. Integral is going to tell me in a past tense. This is going to give me a present tense. And only one tense is left over, that is what in a future tense, and which is what it is done by a derivative controller. And derivative is nothing but a slope of your error. And if my error is like this with respect to time, it is going to behave like this. I want to now predict the error. I am at this particular point and I want to know the error at this point. I can take a slope of this and I can get the value at the error at this next incident. That is what it is done, and it is going to predict the future of it. So that's what this is, future tense it is taking account of it. If you look into this, so you can just look at this graph. So this is the error graph, you can observe, and this is my error is going to change in this fashion. So it is going to take a positive, here it is going to take a slopes of this. So here it is a slope is 0, then your boosting part is going to happen it. So it will create and give the energy, or it will generate a positive energy to this. And this is what it is going to happen, the breaking of it. And obviously oscillation into the system will get died down. And that is what a derivative controller will contribute into this. It is going to help to predict the future of your system, and that is what derivative control does for it. So when you look into this, you can just go through this PPTs. I will share those PPTs for you people. and proportional, then stability, and then tuning. Tuning is one of the technique where it is Ziegler Nicholas has contributed a lot into this, and he's defined this tuning. In this, he has given an input to the system with as they have increased, and as in the system is going to oscillate something, and that time is going to determine, and that time and what are the KP dash for the oscillations, and then you can tune up Ki, Kd. This is what an experimental part of it. Most of the time, it becomes very difficult to set the values of Kp, Kd, Ki, all these values, and this is what one way by which we can tune up this Kp, Kd, Ki parameter practically. So we can take a few examples also. So whenever we are going to select which one signal is to be which type of controller is to be selected for what purpose. So if you have a steady state error into your system, and your error is acceptable, you believe only go for only P controller. And if your error is not acceptable, then measured, and then there will be a possibility your signal may be having a certain noisy signal. Then if noisy signal is there, then you should go for if it is no, then it will go for PI controller. If noise is there, then if noisy signal is yes and you don't want to disturb it, let it be like this, you just go for PI controller. If noisy signal is not, then go for PID controller. Don't go for directly derivative signal. The reason for this, in derivative controller, if you look at this time versus my error, your signal is having like this, and your signal is noisy signal will be like this. In this noisy signal, all the time it is going to tell me the slope of it. And if I am going to multiply with your derivative signal, that derivative controller may disturb the behavior entirely. Because of this noise, this error is going to reduce high, low, like this, and it will create a very large oscillations. To avoid such difficulty, your signal should be noise free whenever you are going to fed up with this derivative controller. If your signal is not noisy, it will create an entire mess up into the performance of your system. That's what you should be careful whenever we are using a derivative controller, and it should be ensured your signal is noise free. So future is the next part of it. Is this is what basically a simple mechatronic system we discuss sensors and something. But when we are going to go for more complicated stuff, so obviously next part is Internet of Things. And in Internet of Things means all these devices are connected with an internet. You are going to sit it and controlling entirely remote, and it has a huge application like in our agricultural domain, mobile systems, everyday things like in a smarter part, energy consumption part, security surveillance system, telemedicine, smart homes, vehicles. It has a huge applications, and you can just explore those applications in later stage. And there is one more domain where people are still walking, that is what an artificial intelligence. So these are the domains where you can get better AI techniques. So now at the end of this entire session, I would like to give a few open-ended problems. Already I told you. So we are now currently facing with COVID-19. So can we develop a system which will sense whether COVID viruses are near to me or not? Can I sense it? So like in our gas sensing or something. So this is what an identification of unwanted bacteria and viruses around us. Can we identify it? So you think on it, you can go ahead with this. Next, how can we develop healthcare devices? So nowadays we can find so many healthcare devices like a pulse oximeter is there, temperature sensor is there, so many things are there. But still there is no more need of such devices with a low cost. So that is what it is important part. Next is how can we have systems for sanitization, and also maybe having a high speed of internet is another part of it. How can I go for a more appropriate sanitization, whether my sanitization was happened or not? So most of the time we are worrying whether we are carrying a COVID with us or not, and all the time whenever we are coming to the home, all the time we are taking care. We are going to wash our hands. We are going to take a bath. So many things we are going to take it whenever we go out and come.
Suhas,
Yeah,
sorry for interruption.
yeah.
Our next guest has joined just, and
Okay.
we will have few questions. Few questions. from
Okay,
the-
okay. Just let me finish within 1 or 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and then we'll.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Go on.
So sanitization part is an again important part of it, and that is what we need to do it. Most interesting part is in a modeling of the brain. Modeling of the brain means what we are going to do it. Whenever we are going to collect as in a human brain, it collects the information with some samples. I can say x 1, 2, 3 are samples, and this is my y. I will only map within a 2 points. This is for x1, I got y1, then this. I got this, all the data points. And we are going to fit the curve within some maybe y is equal to mx plus c. Next time, when I get in some other information, I am going to change this angle within some change in the yam and c values. And all the information of this entire data from x0 to xn samples data will be stored in these two numbers m and c. I need not worry about this, what is the value of x0, y1 something, if I know this equation. So this is what in a simple curve fitting you can find it. Why cannot, what are the information we are getting as in a or collecting the information through the sensors, why cannot we collect the information and fit into our multi-dimensional mapping? And that is what it is called as modeling of the brain. Can we do it somewhere on this front also? The next part is in a pollution. Can we split up this CO2, NOx, CO into different parts? Can we develop a photosynthesis process artificially? That is also one of the area where we can think of to work in, and that is what in mechatronics or interdisciplinary part will help us to contribute more into this part. So this is all I would like to share to you people. I'm thankful. I am very much thankful to Sudhir sir, Gowli sir, and all